from all of that, you will receive an object back. And I mean, just a little heads up, you can say like whatever return dot results should give you the results. And for the first non-stretch part, you're just going to take the very first item of the array is how it comes back, I believe, if memory serves me correct. And you will get you're going to get something for each item that comes back in the search, which you'll get a lot back. There's something like a place ID or something like that that's on there, and you're going to have to once again get that place ID and make a second API call, keeping the asynchronous nature and the race, conditions that could take effect into consideration. Make a second API call to get the place details. And once you get that back, you're just supposed to return it to the user that originally made the GET request. I don't know how to, I mean, that's...
No, Jonathan, I think you did a great, very detailed job there.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Shabana.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you,
no
Jonathan.
problem. I mean, that, and other than that, and then just down in the stretch, you're just going to end up dealing with more of the, I think, race conditions, or maybe iterating over it. We haven't tackled that yet, but we just wanted to listen in on this. But that's how I interpreted it, and that's how we did it, and got it to work. So I'm going to mute my mic.
Actually, Jonathan, please don't, because I have a follow-up question for you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
And I don't mean to pick on you, and I do want to encourage everyone to speak up and use their words. That was an excellent, very detailed, and thorough answer. And I'm going to give you a challenge now. I know you're up to it. Can you describe for me the objectives of the project with the place and text search in 25 words or less?
Repeat the question.
Just if you can give the basic project overview for the text and place search with the API, if you can describe that in 25 words or less. Give me the elevator pitch.
Server intakes a query in GET, passes it into Google's place search, into the text search request, then abstracts the location ID and sends it.
John, I'm sorry. Google. I think you're already over 25 words.
Hey, now.
Who was that?
Play it. That was me.
Well, and I'm not
don't even.
I'm not just having fun. I mean, because this kind of dialogue is how you will, solidify a lot of the words, that in the concepts and these abstract things. I think you did a great job, Jonathan.
I guess if I had to do the shortest, take a search query and pass it to text search request and abstract the returned place ID and send that to place details all within the Google API. I don't know how I could shorten it more without just making choppy like sentence fragments.
Oh no, that's great. And the only reason I asked that is, sometimes you got to explain these things to non-technical audiences, and just that idea of an elevator pitch. I think you did a great job. I'm sorry to pick on you. I don't scare you off from speaking up in the future.
Oh no, absolutely. You know me. I mean, it's just it's sometimes when you get put on the. I've kind of gotten used to it. They explain it to a 5-year-old. I've not gotten the 25 words or less. And if you've seen some of my messages to you, Patrick, 25 words or less aren't always the case with me.
I know, that's why I decided to pick on you. The 25 words or less comes from the movie business of just tell me what the darn plot is in 25 words or less. I'm too busy for anything else.
Well, that's a twisted one with this, because this, with the multiple calls. But anyways, so that's what I would say.
And also, Shabana, you did ask a question about the nested fetching. So I just want to make sure that you've got a clear vision in your head.
Yes. 3 times Jonathan explained it. Yes, I understand it.
Yeah, we're putting him through the paces. So let's pick on somebody else.
Here.
So I have a recommendation for those of you who I would only recommend this if you're already comfortable with the .then syntax. So when you're using multiple queries that are independent on each other, I would recommend using, there's this thing called async await. and it's really clean code. So if you already feel comfortable with .then, I would suggest looking into that if you want to try something else out.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. That is an excellent suggestion. I'm just taking a look in Slack to see what we've got going on. Quiet params. Okay, Richard, we talked to you about params. Multiple thens and fetch. Why can't you do it in one? Aaron, this is your question. How about multiple thens within fetch? Why can't you do it in one?
Like, let me clarify a little bit. I just mean, it seems to me that that you're having to break down the logic into the most infinitesimal details and passing each little tiny bit into the next then. It seems easy to just, anyway, it just would seem easier. I'm not sure. I mean, as we worked through it, it was making more sense. But at the beginning, it didn't make a whole lot of sense why you couldn't just say .then and put in all your logic in the first then.
Mm-hmm. Off the top of my head, I don't have a great explanation ready to go. So I'll ask if anyone else wants to address this, any of the TAs or students. But I do think you kind of hit the nail on the head about, just breaking things down into their infinitesimal little, atomistic thing that you're doing with whatever object or parameter or whatever the why can't we do it in just one?
I would say that there are cases when you could, but there are also cases where what you're trying to access is actually a promise in itself. So you might have to flatten it first and use another .then to get where you want to get.
Yeah, and I would kind of think of that as kind of like just the discreteness of your promises and your data. And, maybe there are cases too where you could combine a lot of things into one clever, do all. But I think there's also an aesthetic consideration for the readability of the code. Just to be able to look through it line by line and say, okay, then this is promising this, and then that's going to happen, and then we're going to catch errors, and then we're done with that little bit. And so I think there might be a couple considerations in there, but I think Dylan's is what he was saying, though, is probably the most important thing to consider, because with promises, like, you got to allow for them to do what they got to do when they got to do it, or when they can do it, I guess, is the issue.
Can I ask a quick question related to that?
Nope. Of course.
Okay. So say we're going to, if I'm just making sure I understand this right, because I had a little bit of question about this while we were doing it. So you're saying, say we get a GET request from the user that they send us a search query, and say we've got to run multiple API calls, whatever it is. So can we set up each, are you saying we can set up each fetch like as a separate, like define it as a separate function to whatever route we're having to go to? And then within that GET request, we can invoke all those functions, but we just have to make them async with the await? Or do we define it all and then in a totally separate function invoke it all with the await? I'm lost on this. as far as like best practice or reasonable practice or totally not catastrophic practice. And I mean, I was Googling around and couldn't even find any definitive examples on, okay, this is what you really ought to do, or theoretically, this is how your flow should work. There's just everything in the world out there. That's all. That's best I can word it.
Yeah, and answering Aaron's question, I don't have a great answer to give you. I don't know, maybe Dylan, do you think you might have maybe possibly any kind of good primer resources on async and await that might help with some of this? But
Yeah, I have some pretty good resources. I can drop links for it then. So
that would be awesome. Otherwise, it's hard to answer the best practices because much of that will depend on the company, but also a lot of it will depend on the scope and scale of your project. And while this API call to Google Maps is a little more, pragmatic than just some contrived, like, do these things to get used to these methods, it's not a huge, you don't have millions of users jamming on your server all day long. And I hate to give you my standard, well, yeah, just try and see what it does and have fun. And I'll be honest, too. I mean, I'm no master of async and await. And my focus is just, can I get something that behaves how I expect it to? But I don't want you to lower your expectations because mine are low. I don't
That's
know.
funny.
Mm-hmm.
I was just laughing. I just thought that was funny.
Maybe I don't know who else is in here. Do we have Matthew or Manisha or Tig or Wesley? Any thoughts on the matter?
Not sure how much I'm going to contribute to that.
Is that because I fired you earlier today?
Yes, I no longer work here.
Oh man, my bad.
No, async await is something I'm not very familiar with, but I think that's probably I know it's not. I don't think it's listed anywhere, but might be just a good stretch goal to kind of look into once MVP is kind of accomplished.
Well, and I think we've got a good follow-up question after this from Nikhil. I could use a refresher, not necessarily here, but yeah, what's going on under the hood with then? Use a better understanding of async stuff in general. As could I. I'm sure you all watched Sean's introduction lecture to promises. If I recall correctly, I think that was recorded for CS1, and I haven't watched it since then. But that said, everybody knows my favorite search tool. So I'm going to just see what I can pull up in my own notes. Look at here. Promises.prototype.then. Like it came right up when I typed in JS then. So let's have a look at this. I mean, when I think about this, I kind of just like try and think of like, how would I use this in a sentence, and why is it named that way? And maybe I'm just too much of a word nerd. but I don't really know what's going on in the background of how asynchronous functions get executed and fulfilled, but do this and then do this. Yes, exactly. That I don't really have a much deeper understanding of it than, then something will happen. So Nikhil, I wish I had a better answer for you. Let me take a look at your question again and actually think for a second here instead of talk. Certainly. So many resources, so little time. Because I think the idea of a synchronous function, of something that kind of happens linearly, I mean, that's generally how I think about things. Like, I'm going to do things procedurally in an order, first to last. And then promises are asynchronous. So they're, go out into the world and wait until they're done, and then they're able to get whatever the return from the function call is able to get incorporated into whatever's going on. But words. I'm not doing a very good job of clarifying anything. So, anybody else have any thoughts about how to explain a little bit better what's going on with async stuff in general and dot then promises?
Two words, ask Russell.
All right, well, let's ask Russell. Can you give us your dissertation on async functionality and then promises? Feel free to say no. I don't want to put you on the spot. In fact, are you even in here? Well, I don't know that Russell has a microphone available to him right now. But as always, I'm happy to admit my ignorance and apologize for not having a better answer for you. So I will look into the matter. Any of the other TAs have any thoughts that they want to share, or any other students that have any kind of intuition about what's going on with async and then promises, other than the obvious it happens then, which is not now? Okay.
Well, I kind of have.
So since we don't have any answers about that, how about all?
All?
Yeah, dot all as opposed to dot then.
So I think he's referring to promise.all.
Yes.
And yeah, promise.all is just, it's a promise in itself, but what it does is it takes in an array of promises and it waits till all those promises resolves till it resolves itself. So it's great when you have a bunch of promises that you need to all resolve before the promise.all resolves.
Oh, and Nikhil made a great comment. Yeah, more practice with using the tools, definitely. And also, too, while using them, highly, strongly encourage writing comments to explain what they do. Otherwise, you find yourself in a position like me where I haven't really used them much in the last couple of weeks and can't really remember off the top of my head. But if I had a script that I'd used them that had good comments in them, I could just look at that and pick right back up. As a metaphor, I'm sure you've all seen the Matrix movies. I forget which one it was, the second or third, but there's a scene where Keanu Reeves and the old guy are down in the lower levels of Zion, and the old guy's looking at some of the machines and says something to the effect of, I don't know what those do. I don't need to know what they do. I just know that they do what they do. And that is maybe not the best bargain that I've made with myself on a lot of these more technical things that I don't have a deep understanding on. Is that so long as I know that then behaves in a certain way and I can rely upon it, then that's adequate. And when I run into instances where that behavior is not as I expect, then at that point I can dig a little deeper and try and research the context of what's going on as to why things don't behave the way I do. And yes, Richard, you know Kung Fu. So, moving right along, let's see what else have we got here. Why, how Fetch automatically changes coffee shops in Austin to coffee.shops. Plus in Austin. That I don't know. Anybody? Anybody? Bueller?
Is it time for open questions?
Always. Yeah. I just, a bunch of people have typed stuff in, so I was just trying to get down through them. I don't have an answer for Mr. Sprawl about fetching and the change in the syntax with pluses, but sure, what's your question?
This may be a little ordained, or maybe even quite possibly. Dang it, I was trying to find the word, but I lost track. I was going to ask, and you may have already answered it, but as far as the implementation with the get, fetch, and the search API, there's the fetch URL and then comma, and then there's options. But as far as the options go, that's for a HTTP request, and then it returns a promise, or am I getting it wrong?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Me neither.
And that's okay. But you're talking about to have the get for the place to fetch the places and then use that to grab some details?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your question?
Honestly, I still don't know. I just thought, me would make me think of a detailed question. But
I think the question was, does it return a promise?
Thank you, Jonathan.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Yes, the fetch, when you search for the place, would return a .then promise. Mm-hmm. And kind of like what Shobana was asking about earlier, she was wondering if you should nest the details fetch within the places fetch, and that is one way of doing it. Yes, there might be fancier, cooler, neater, asyncier ways of doing it without that, but basically, yeah, what would be, how to explain this without totally giving up the goose, but if you were going to have your search URL, you would fetch from there and then hang the dot chain promise off of it. So you'd have your fetch search URL, then do something with that place in a JSON object, maybe.
It's all good. I get what you're saying.
But yeah, no, and I love it too. I mean, it is. It's difficult to talk about these things sometimes because language is ambiguous and confounding, and we find ourselves in this position of like, oh, we've got these very technical, specific ways of talking about things, but I use terms like fetch and then and this and get, normally every day, and to use them in this very constrained way, it makes
right.
So.
Oh, it's all good. I understand. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, too. That's why I say, feel free, everyone. If there's not a lot of background noise, especially open up your mics and let's make this a dialogue because we've got. I think we're still at about 50 students in the class and 5, 6, 7 TAs and all the instructors. And I mean, this is your community and the dialogue that we have in this community. I mean, that's you know, maybe in your professional life, you'll be lucky to have an open dialogue with everyone, but a lot of times people are busy and don't have time to answer questions. So asking questions and answering them, it's all good practice with, using your words. And I love to see the dialogue happening. So now that we're done with Devin's question, you just kind of jumped on in. No, you're all good, man. Let's see. What else do we have going on here? So sorry, John. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you. Maybe someone else does. Daniel, Lara, what was the question? I have no idea. Dum, 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 dum. Nice. Okay. And yes, Patrick Bott is a famous movie executive. Oh my goodness gracious. What's the command? Actually, someone explained it then. My partner, I didn't do it that way because we think. Okay, so Eileen, are you still unclear? It looks like Aaron posted some examples.
No, that was earlier.
Okay. Sorry,
I think I got a better handle on it. And Russell's a little shy. He'll answer everybody's question later. Type something cool out.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being.
He's really helped me out with that. That's why I thought I would talk about how well he explained it to me.
Yeah, and yeah, I love the shout outs. Got to give the props to each other. And always
everyone I've worked with, I've got to give shout outs to because they're really great.
Yeah, and I mean whether you're asking the question or answering it, whenever anybody has that little aha, I get this, always good to be grateful. And Russell, I do see you're here in the meeting, but yeah, it looks like you don't have a mic, so oh well, feel free to type. But definitely, yeah, I've learned a lot from Russell too, so I think he's awesome as well. And as an example, though, to address this asynchronous promising, here's something that might help to visualize it. So we have our Slack chat channel, which just has a chronological, boring, linear progression. But I am asynchronously addressing these issues, and then you guys add more comments, and so then I catch up and then figure out how I fit into the ongoing program. So that's kind of my little metaphor for asynchronous functionality. Patrick Bot here is asynchronously chewing through the scenery on the CS7 movie set. 'Tis a web of options indeed, Mr. Lara. Oh, awesome, Dylan. Thank you. Yeah, I like that guy's video series. He's got lots of good stuff. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, number 5 surprised me. Well, we are getting close to the top of the hour. I don't want to eat up too much of your time because we've only got 2 hours and 7 minutes left in the day. Oh, looks like somebody solved their Apple issue. I don't know what that Apple issue was, but yes, let's all praise the coding gods. And thank you. I'm glad I'm not so bad after all. Instead of an if-then statement, fetch-then statement. John, yes, it sounds like you're grokking that. And if you don't understand the term grokking, it's because you're young. Dealing with promises does take time to get used to. Patrick the Starfish can help with that. Yes, more practice, more kung fu. Richard is epic. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to keep reading through this. If anyone else wants to jump in with a question or some thoughts for the day, project managers, if you guys have noticed any big wins today that you want to share with the class, or any observations of things you've seen people button up against and ways to solve them, would love to hear from it. Hear from you. Okay. Well, since we are here, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the Node Express Gmaps pull request log. And I'm going to share my screen with everybody because I can. There we go. All righty. So I want to say a couple of things that I am super stoked on. I love that people are using the task list syntax in the first comments of their PRs. So I'm just going to pick on Daniel and Jonathan here to show you guys how this works. Couple of things. I love that everyone's putting their names in their titles. If you haven't or you want to change it, you can always hit this edit button. For this first comment, this is where the task list syntax will work beautifully. You can nest things inside of here, but this basic dash, space, square brackets, text format in the first comment is what allows in the main pull request channel for us to see a progression bar. And I'm not entirely sure. Somebody had one where they stuck a bunch of maybe it was Mr. Lara and Mr. Tan, that I was very impressed with. Come on, internet. Awesome Legos. Here, this, Daniel Lara and Roy Tan, you guys get super extra magma mondo Bustorama bonus points for the day. I just want everyone to appreciate the beauty of this. They have included the task list syntax. They have also put in the descriptions of the requirements. And if you'll notice when I look at the actual text, you can just see they've, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces in to indent, and then you can double indent 8 spaces in, and you end up with these beautiful, unordered lists. So you can always refer to this when you look at your PR and you look for comments from people. This made me jump with joy. I was so very happy. So enough about what makes me happy and what a ridiculously pathetic life I must have if that's what makes me so happy. No, it's just that I'm very proud of you guys that you are communicating and using these tools. I just also want to point out that we have, I think, 23 pair groups this week, and so far, starting from 5 hours ago, we have 19 pull requests submitted so far. And so not yelling at people that haven't submitted yet. People are in different stages with things, but I just want to say as a class, the feedback I've been getting overall is that the pairing is working out really well. Seems like you guys are not only getting along, making new friends, helping each other out, but that it's helping you guys to keep moving forward, keep advancing with all of this. So I'm really thrilled to see this kind of consistency and level of work from all of you guys. So I want to say thank you, and also just give you all a pat on the back. And with that, it's 2 minutes to the hour. So why are you wasting time listening to me? Get back to work now. Any final questions?
I have a question, Pat. What's going on? We're doing the task list and Git in lieu of Trello, or you want both?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are you looking for, we no longer have to use Trello for a task list, we just do it within Git using your task syntax?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do this task list syntax. If it helps you, to refer to this and to check these off, it also makes it easy for the TAs to see this. As far as the Trello or Agile, Scrum, Pomodoro stuff that Josh was talking about in the front-end project group,
yes,
I strongly encourage you to make that a habit if it is helpful to you. But considering the number of projects that we get to Monday through Thursday, I'm not expecting that anyone's going to do that.
Yeah, it doubles work.
Yeah. And more, maybe if you recall from Josh's lecture, that is more for, on some levels, your own edification while you're working on a project that's going to take you a long time. Just because, you'll get busy with one thing, you'll dive into one, corner of it, and to be able to, step back and say, oh, okay, what's the overall picture again? But those kinds of agile methodologies, are especially useful and designed for group projects, and especially large group projects that might, take a week, it might take months, or whatever the particular timeline and scale of the endeavor is. So good question. But yeah, if no need to kill yourself building Trello boards unless you love doing it. Some people do.
Well, I mean, it's good to know the tool, but to try to manage both of this and do all that, I think is overkill. I think it's cleaner to work and get for our purpose.
Yeah, and let me share up my screen too while we're talking about this. Another good opportunity to use the tools would be, we're doing Node this week. We're doing Mongo next week. Then we get into authentication, relational database management systems, then testing, which is going to be awesome. And then we're going to, on April 9th till the 13th, we're going to have a back-end project week, it looks like. And this calendar will get updated for the day-to-day stuff. But like your front-end project week, you'll have a back-end project week. And that might very well be another opportune time to, you'll be getting likely, I don't know this for sure, but likely you'll be getting objectives and goals, minimum viable product goals from a client. And that would be another good opportunity to use Trello boards. Farther down the road, you guys are going to get into CS, computer science, and all the just amazing stuff that Beige and crew have in store for you. If you have not met Beige yet, he is awesome. Totally love that guy. And then here, it looks like starting Monday, June 18th, will be the first week of capstone projects. That will very much so be another opportunity for using Trello boards. I don't have much current information about what the shape of that will be in, but as I understand, it will be a group project that will last for a couple of weeks, and information will be coming in a timely fashion to let you guys know. Oh, wow. And then, wow, sometime in the future, you're going to be done with Lambda School. So to get back to your question, David, yes, don't worry about doing Trello boards at all.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. If you want, though, and they help you, those task lists, I find them useful. But everything's on the project's README. So long as when you download that, you've got easy access to that in your editor. I believe Visual Studio Code has like a Markdown preview if it's easier to look at it rendered out in Markdown. But yeah, just always keep that README at the ready, and that should spell it out for you as far as what the goals are and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I actually use Axosoft on time as my primary manager. So to me, that's a better product than Jira and all the other alternatives as a product manager. But,
oh, awesome. Well, then I'm going to strongly encourage you to consider giving the class a brown bag on how to use that stuff.
Okay. I might do that after I figure out how to make code work.
Oh, was I not sharing my screen that whole time?
No, we saw your beautiful note.
Okay, good. Sorry, too many windows going on. So it's 5 past the hour. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap this up here? Can I defer to CS20? Igor, no. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no need to kill yourself unless Patrick. Yeah. Oh, I got to be careful what I say. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining me. I hope this was a useful and productive session for everyone. Thank you, everybody who joined in with awesome questions and useful answers. And get back to work.